Imagine a place where mountains of rock hide secrets older than memory. A place where kings and queens of the most powerful empire in the world were buried with gold, weapons, and prayers for eternity. A place where treasure hunters, thieves, and explorers risked everything for what lay inside. This is the Valley of the Kings, a silent desert canyon that once held the greatest secret of them all, the tomb of Tutankhamun, the boy pharaoh. For centuries, the valley looked empty, just sand, cliffs, and burning sun. But beneath its surface, tunnels and chambers stretched deep into the earth. Over 60 royal tombs were carved here, each one meant to guard a king forever. And yet, almost every tomb was broken into, stripped of treasure, and robbed, except one. The Valley of the Kings was chosen for a reason. Pharaohs wanted to be safe from tomb robbers. Pyramids, once symbols of power, had become giant targets, easy to spot, easy to break into. So the kings of the New Kingdom, around 3,500 years ago, chose secrecy over size. They built their tombs underground, hidden in the desert cliffs west of the Nile. No pyramids, no grand monuments, just plain doorways cut into the rock, disguised by rubble. Inside, however, they created long tunnels, deep chambers, and walls painted with scenes of the afterlife. The tombs became like underground palaces, filled with treasures to last for eternity. Pharaoh's afterlife. Journey. To the Egyptians, death wasn't an end. It was a dangerous journey. A king needed food, weapons, magic, and prayers to pass through the underworld and rise with the sun god each morning. That's why tombs were filled with everything. Golden masks, so the king's soul would recognize his body. Statues of servants called shabtis, who would work for him in the afterlife. Chariots, bows, and weapons for hunting or battle. Beds, sandals, and even toys for comfort. And walls covered with sacred texts, the Book of the Dead, maps to guide him through the trials of the underworld. Each item told a story. Each treasure had a purpose, but secrecy could not protect forever. Tomb robbers were clever and desperate. They crawled through tunnels, smashed open doors, and stripped chambers bare. Gold was melted down, jewelry stolen, even mummies torn apart for their amulets. By the time archaeologists arrived in the 1800s, most tombs were empty. Only broken coffins and shattered jars remained. The Valley of the Kings had become a graveyard of ghosts, ruins of greatness. All except for one tomb, Tutankhamun's. Hidden under rubble, overlooked by thieves, it survived untouched for over 3,000 years. That is why the boy king became the most famous pharaoh of all. By the early 1900s, archaeologists thought the valley had no secrets left. Dozens of tombs had been cataloged. Explorers packed up and left. But one man didn't give up. Howard Carter. He believed there was one more tomb waiting. In 1922, after years of digging, his workers uncovered a staircase. They cleared the sand. At the bottom was a sealed doorway. When Carter peered inside, he saw glittering treasures piled to the ceiling. At last, Tutankhamun's tomb had been found, the only pharaoh's burial still intact. This discovery would change history forever. The Valley of the Kings held secrets for over 3,000 years. Pharaohs dreamed of eternity, but thieves stole their treasures. Only Tutankhamun escaped their grasp. But here's the real mystery. Why was his tomb so small? Why were so many of his treasures secondhand? And why, of all the pharaohs, did he become the most famous of them all? Those answers lie hidden in the story of the valley itself, the pharaoh's hidden city of the dead. The Valley of the Kings was not just a burial site. It was a secret city of the dead. Pharaohs of the New Kingdom, like Thutmose III, Seti I, and Ramesses II, chose this valley to hide their tombs far from thieves. Each tomb was like a palace dug underground, long corridors, painted ceilings, and chambers filled with treasures. But there was another reason they chose this valley. Above it towers a pyramid-shaped peak, the mountain called El Qurn. For the ancient Egyptians, this natural pyramid was a sacred symbol, pointing to the heavens. To them, the valley was not just stone. It was holy ground, the great pharaohs of the valley. Some of Egypt's most powerful kings rested here. Thutmose III, the warrior pharaoh, called the Napoleon of Egypt, who expanded the empire farther than ever before. Seti I, builder of one of the most beautiful tombs, with colorful wall paintings still glowing after 3,000 years. Ramesses II, the great builder, whose reign lasted 66 years and left more monuments than any other king. Each tomb was carved to guide the king to eternity, but most did not remain safe. When modern archaeologists entered, they found only scraps, broken coffins, stripped walls, and shattered jars. The pharaohs had been buried as gods, but robbed like ordinary men. The robber's trail. Why were so many tombs looted? The answer is simple: gold. Ancient tomb robbers didn't wait centuries. Many broke in only years after the king's burial. They knew the tombs held gold masks, jewelry, amulets, and statues, wealth beyond imagination. Texts from the time tell us of trials where thieves were caught and punished, but others escaped with fortunes. Over time, nearly every tomb in the valley was emptied. Imagine crawling through a dark tunnel, breaking open a door, and seeing piles of treasure lit by a single torch. That temptation was too powerful to resist. Why Tut's tomb survived. And yet, one tomb escaped: Tutankhamun's. Why? Because it was small and hidden. Tutankhamun died suddenly at 19. His tomb was unfinished, so priests buried him in a side chamber meant for meon else. Larger tombs nearby drew the robbers' eyes, but Tut's entrance was buried under rubble and forgotten. By luck, or fate, his treasures remained safe for over 3,000 years. When Howard Carter found it in 1922, it was the only tomb still sealed. Inside were more than 5,000 objects, stacked high in the tiny rooms. From golden thrones to childhood toys, it was a complete snapshot of a pharaoh's life. Inside the tomb of the boy king. Carter's first step inside Tut's tomb was like stepping into another world. Golden shrines filled the burial chamber. Beds shaped like animals, chariots stacked against walls, and jars of food for eternity filled the antechamber. Everything was crammed into a space no bigger than a small apartment. At the center lay nested shrines, a stone sarcophagus, and 3 coffins. And inside those coffins, the body of Tutankhamun, wearing the golden mask that became the most famous face in history. Other pharaohs lost their treasures to robbers. Tut, though buried in haste, kept his. The valley's greatest mystery. The Valley of the Kings tells 2 stories. One of glory, pharaohs buried with treasures, magic, and monuments. And one of loss, almost every tomb broken, treasures stolen, mummies desecrated. But Tutankhamun is different. A forgotten boy king, buried in a rush, in a small tomb, became the most famous pharaoh of all. His survival was a twist of fate. Because his tomb was overlooked, his treasures remained, and his story reached us. The question is, what other secrets still lie buried beneath the cliffs? Over 60 tombs have been found, but archaeologists believe more remain hidden. Perhaps queens, princes, or even Nefertiti herself still wait to be discovered.